Hello and welcome to Homeowner Talk. My name is David Stone and I'm president of Nevada Association Services. And this is my co-host, John Leach. John's a partner in the law firm of Leach, Johnson, Song & Gruco. Each episode we'll be here to talk to you about important homeowner topics. We, along with our guests, are here to provide you with useful information on various subjects.
We also want to encourage you to interact with us and our guests each episode. So please visit our website at homeownertalktv.com and send us your questions. We will try to answer as many of your questions as we can on the air and online.
Now, on this show, we're going to be talking about landscaping. So I would like to welcome Jay Stoss, co-owner of Classic Landscape LLC. Jay, it's great to see you again.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for being here. And maybe you could just give a little bit of background on you and Classic.
Okay, well, my partner Alex Zari and I started Classic Landscapes back in February 2004. So we just entered our 8th year in business. We are a Nevada C10 contractor, so we can do any type of landscape contract, maintenance or construction. We also have a contractor's license in Arizona as well. And we basically started the company with 0 employees and 0 clients. And since then, we've grown the organization into about a $5 million a year company. And we employ pretty much 80 to 100 people a year, field workers and staff. And we have over 100 clients valley-wide. So
that's awesome.
I remember when Jay started off many years ago, and I said, going off on your own, that's crazy, and it worked out quite well.
Success story, you like to see that.
I love those, I'll tell you, I love those stories.
You mentioned the C10 license, is that what
Correct.
it is? License, and does that indicate who your clients are? Maybe you can tell us what type of clients you use. Is that important to have that certain license?
It's not really important it is important, it's very important having a C10 contractor's license, but basically that distinguishes you from a maintenance company versus a company that can actually do construction work. So in the state of Nevada, you have to have a C10 contractor's license. To basically dig a shovel in the ground, you have to have a C10 contractor's license.
Maybe you can share with our viewers some of your clients, so the kind of companies that you work with. And
well, we have a wide variety of clients. We do work with commercial accounts such as the Rio Hotel, Stratosphere Hotel and Casino, the Aquarius Hotel in Laughlin, as well as numerous commercial properties, shopping centers. But predominantly we do a lot of work with community associations. So I have over 80 community associations in Las Vegas and Henderson, so including ones as large as the Spanish Trail Master Association, Sun City McDonald Ranch, and Section 7 at the Lakes. And then we go all the way down to mid-range properties that might have a park and a perimeter and a front entrance.
Excellent. Excellent. I know that you guys have been kind enough to let us go out in the field with you and learn a little bit out there firsthand, but I was wondering if you could tell our viewers a little bit about what it is they should be aware of in trying to save money. What is the most important thing for them to keep in mind right now? Because we're about ready to get into the heavier, we're in the heavier season now with the weather that we have. So,
well, what happened basically a couple of years ago when the economy took the downturn, all the associations immediately went to figure out how to save money. And there was a lot of let's slash our services. And unfortunately, the result of that is that you're going to get poor service and you're going to get less home value for your home. So what we want to do is we want to make sure our associations are looking good and keep the same level of service. So we went out and looked for innovative ways to try and save them money. So we went through and looked at different ways that we could save water through technology and irrigation systems, eliminating turf areas that aren't really needed, pruning different types of trees and plants at different times of the year, so you only have to prune them once instead of several times. And then also watering and fertilizing your plant material adequately so you don't have to replace as many.
So balancing, trying to keep their costs stabilized, but yet not compromising so much on the appearance and aesthetics of your community.
Exactly. So that's what we did in the field when we go out with Homeowner Talk in the field, that we go through each one of those categories and show you section by section what we can do.
That's great. And Classic has sort of been cutting edge in its ability to find ways to save money. I know many associations that have been involved with you, and they're able to shave their bottom line, and that's ultimately what needs to be done.
Well, and that's critical, because a lot of people think, well, we're just trying to slash money, keep costs down, but then the property values are damaged because the properties don't look good. And even though the economy is down, and yes, that's affecting property values, I don't think we can just close our eyes to what we do have control over. And if you can use these innovative ideas, reduce expense but maintain an appearance, I think that's critical for your homeowner.
Yeah, it's a balancing act.
And by doing it that way, it's a lot better than just slashing contracts, and that's what a lot of people initially tried to do. But now we've got a proactive program working on this, and people are really happy with it. So
that's great. Jay, thank you very much for joining us. When we come back, we're going to learn how to save money with some helpful landscaping tips from Jay, as well as Alex Zari, co-owner of Classic Landscape LLC. We'll be right back.
When you earn your GED diploma, the barriers in your life fall. Take the first step and get free GED information in your area at 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or yourged.org. Earn your GED diploma and begin your brighter future.
It's a great time of year to enjoy your City of Las Vegas parks. So come out, relax, and have some fun with your family and friends. And when you do, remember, a new park ordinance is in effect. Go ahead and bring that cooler or picnic basket, but please, no glass beverage containers in any city park. Also, alcohol is only allowed in reservable picnic pavilions and special event areas. Find out more at lasvegasnevada.gov/reserve a park or call 229-6718.
Now we'll get some really good tips from homeowner associations on how you can save money on landscaping with Alex Zari and Jay Stoss, co-owners of Classic Landscape LLC.
A community gets a longevity out of their plant material in the long run by basically doing two things. One is adequately watering their plant material, and then second is actually fertilizing their plant material. And a lot of associations in the valley don't fertilize their plant material. So what we recommend to make that easier is to install a fertigation system. And basically what that is it's a tank, and that tank is put into the ground and it's connected to the main line. The actual fertilizer is put in the fertigation tank. The tank injects the fertilizer into the irrigation line. So what will happen is it actually regulates how much fertilizer goes into the main line. So for example, if you have your drip system, which is shown here, that drip system is actually feeding and watering its plant material at the same time. It's actually not very hard to manage this system. All it takes is a reminder twice a year to make sure that you come and you put the fertilizer into the system. You only want to fertilize basically in spring, around March, and then again in October in the fall. And what that'll do is that'll make sure that your plants are actually fertilized properly at the right times. And by doing that, the community is going to have less plant replacement costs in the future because it's being fertilized properly and watered properly.
Updating the irrigation system is very important since they are coming up with new things every day. It's evolving from so many years. We've been here in Vegas doing landscaping. The thing moved from brass heads to new nozzles and right now you have to keep up with that because what they are coming up, as you can see behind me, here is a very good example of how an old system of spray heads is misting and the wind is taking it away, creating a lot of mist and runoff. And then this is the new system they are coming up with, which is called an oscillating system, minimizing, giving exactly what we need as water to the grass where it's needed and exactly what's needed without any waste involved in this. And this, of course, water is money. And if you're going to save on water, you're going to save on money, and that's a good thing to start with. And the old days, we used to have always a sprinkler head shooting toward the plants, wasting so much water and hitting walls and hardscapes. Now, if you have anything that is below, less than 3 feet or 4 feet, make sure you put a drip system there so the water is going directly to where you want it instead of destroying everything that is around it.
Pruning the palm trees at the right time for a community is actually one of the most simplest ways to save money. Basically what happens is the palm tree begins growing right around the beginning of March. And as it grows, the heart on the inside of the palm tree comes up through the tree. And as that happens, the lower fronds on the outside begin to die off. This is a natural part of the process. However, the first initial round of dead fronds shows up right around April, mid-April. There's a lot of associations that think that's the time to prune their palm trees. So they go out and they have somebody come and prune their palm trees. Then the palm tree continues to grow all the way until the end of June. And at that point in time, they have a lot more dead fronds that need to be pruned off. So they have to prune them again, which is doubling their costs. So the best thing to do is just wait, let the fronds grow out and die naturally, and then at the very end, prune them at the end of June. This is a great way for your association to save some money. The tree maintenance can definitely keep costs down for a community. It's a great way to do it because it's very simple but very effective. What happens as a tree grows, any type of tree, a lot of dead material ends up in the inside of the tree canopy. So what happens is when you're experiencing a windy day, it can catch the canopy of the tree and actually topple the tree over. So that would result in possible structure damage, car damage, or hopefully not bodily damage to an actual person. So the best thing to do for an association is just go through and start a tree maintenance program and begin thinning the insides of the trees. So as you can see here, this is a pine tree that's been thinned out very nicely. The wind can actually go through the canopy very effectively and not cause any damage to the tree.
There is so many plants in the valley. Unfortunately, everybody thinks that in the desert it's going to be all cactus, it's going to be all pines, and there is so much variety of plants, so colorful and so that we can work with, and they fit exactly for our climate. By using the right plants for your landscape, not only you're going to save water, which again is another money that you're going to be saving, but also you are using the right plant that withstands the weather, the cold and the heat that we have, and it's not something you're going to be replacing every year. And if you use them at the right spot, the right location, you're going to have a nice landscaping.
What we're currently looking at is a turf conversion of an area that was grass. As you can see, there was a large slope of grass that was watering this hillside. So what we recommended to the association was to remove the grass and replace it with a converted area, which is called a xeriscape, with rocks and plants and boulders to prevent and minimize damage to all the flat work, to the parking lots, and to the curb lines. So basically what happens is by having grass in an area like this and it's being watered, all your water that's coming out of the turf area is basically just going right down the gutter after about a minute. Also, the water rebate is still being offered by the Southern Nevada Water Authority. So the community association not only was able to save money with their water costs in the long run, but also they got a rebate from the water district as well.
When you choose a contractor, make sure you choose a licensed, properly licensed contractor. By saying that, they need to have a C10 license. By having C10 license, they are allowed to dig and plant and fix irrigation and do whatever the association is in need, instead of sub it to another landscaper to come over your property and do it on top of the landscaper you have. If your landscaper you have, yes, he might have a license to do mowing and cutting, but if he doesn't have a C10 license, he cannot break ground at all to fix an irrigation. It's illegal to do that. So every time he's gonna have or encounter a problem, or the association wants to plant a tree or to fix a main line, he cannot do it. They need to bring somebody in with a C10 license to do it for them, make sure he's correctly insured, that he's got his workman's comp, everything is in place before you hire that contractor.
So here we're looking at a piece of fescue sod, which is very common in Las Vegas. It's the type of grass that we have. And as we mow that grass over long periods of time, over years and years and years, basically a layer of dead grass begins to develop just below the surface of the grass blades that we see. And it creates a barrier in between the turf and the actual roots of the grass. So what we recommend is aerating and dethatching that grass once per year to basically loosen up the soil and loosen the soil compaction, and this will help allow the water to penetrate the roots of the grass and give you a healthier turf, as well as minimize runoff.
When an association or a community is trying to pick up a contract to hire a landscaper, they need to make sure to read the contract very clearly and make sure, okay, what is included in these landscape services? Is it a mow, blow, and a job, or everything else is going to be a la carte? So if they have a budget that says, okay, we have $2,000 a month budget for landscape, it's going to end up at $24,000, for example, a year. Well, if they look at the end of the year, they're going to end up with $40,000, because everything that the landscaper did, he came in at a low price, but he's going to add everything to catch up on his thing. So every head is going to be added, every line is going to be added, everything is going to be extra. So make sure you pick up the landscaper that has all that kind of included, and what are the prices before you choose your line, so you don't end up in that situation.
Well, that was very interesting. Alex and Jay had a lot of money-saving tips, and hopefully that'll be useful to you. Joining us now to talk about additional HOA landscaping issues is Melissa Mills, Vice President of Classic Landscape LLC, and joining us, Steve Vitale, Las Vegas Area President of the Management Trust, and who's also a member of the CAI Nevada Board of Directors. And we want to welcome you both to Homeowner Talk. Thanks for being here.
Melissa, why don't you start first and tell our viewers just a little bit about your background and how you got to Classic Landscape?
Well, I've been serving the homeowner association industry now in the Las Vegas Valley for over 10 years now in various different capacities with different companies. I came on board with Classic Landscapes about 3 years ago and have worked diligently with the managers and the board of directors here in the Valley to improve the state of their landscaping.
I know Melissa's very well known in the industry for all your service. We appreciate you joining us. Steve, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got with the Management Trust.
I've been in the industry now for about 20 years and worked for the Community Associations Institute for some time. And 6 years ago, I started with the Management Trust here in Las Vegas. We're the only employee-owned management company in the nation. And it's been quite enjoyable experience for me.
Good. Thanks so much. Guys, a lot of stuff's happening in the economy these days. We just watched a great segment on landscaping issues, and Jay was here to talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that we're confronted with. And I know you see a lot of this in your experience. So, Melissa, maybe we can start with you. And there's a lot of foreclosed homes. There's a lot of cleaning up to be done. And how is this working? How is your company working in these situations to deal with these situations?
Well, it's no big surprise that Nevada was one of the hardest hit economies in relation to the foreclosure market. But what a lot of people aren't talking about is the effect that these foreclosed homes are having on property values and the crime within our communities. So we work very hard with our board members and our managers of these homeowner associations to try to keep these foreclosed properties up within the line of the standards set forth by the community and their governing documents. And Classic Landscapes has been very proactive in initiating a foreclosure cleanup service, wherein depending on the quality of the property, the status of the property when we get involved, we can provide services which range anywhere from just mowing the lawn and possibly pulling some weeds to actually having to remove trees and dead plant material, cap off irrigation, maybe replenish some rock, just to bring that property back into community standards and prevent it from being an eyesore. I mean, we know that these foreclosed homes, these vacant homes, are beacons for vandals and squatters, mischief makers in general, so we try to do whatever we can to help prevent that.
We encourage our viewers to ask questions and to submit questions, and oftentimes the questions are probably better suited for our guests than they are for us. And we were wondering if we could just have you consider a question from one of our viewers. His name is Zach, and he submitted the question was, does a house need to be foreclosed upon by the bank for Classic to be able to come in and clean up the property? And if the bank does foreclose, will the bank pay you to maintain the property?
Actually, the home does not necessarily need to be in foreclosure before we get involved. It just depends on what the governing documents outline as far as procedures that the board of directors and the management company need to take. We've been contacted to go on and clean up properties for a number of different reasons, although I must say that primarily the homes that we do provide services for are foreclosed on.
Okay. Steve, I have a question for you. Tell me what are the steps that are taken to get a new landscaper involved? What are boards looking for? So I'm sitting on the board of directors. I'm unhappy with the landscaping, the service, the pricing. I come to you as my community manager. Where do we go from there? Walk us through the steps to get someone new on board, and what are we looking for? I mean, you as a community manager, what are you telling the board that they need to look for when they're looking for a new landscaping company?
It really depends. Usually when that comes up, the first thing that we do is we try to look at the relationship that the board has with their current landscape company. Sometimes it's just as simple as communication, and there's a communication breakdown. So if we can work out any issues, then we like to give that opportunity. But in the event that they do want to make a change, then what we do is there's a bidding process. And so the board will agenda that item, and we as the management company will go out and solicit bids. We rely heavily on the relationships that we have and companies that we currently work with. We also rely on CAI and members of that organization for landscape companies. And then we provide an RFP, or a request for proposal, outlining what it is the board wants to accomplish. And then we send that out. At a board meeting, they'll open those bids, they'll evaluate them, and they'll make a determination. We tend to look for companies that, of course, are properly licensed and bonded, that are able to cross any language barriers that we may have, and we look at companies that we have experience with, that we can say, companies either such as Classic or other service providers that we have worked with, that we have a relationship with, and we have experience, and we can push that to the board and say, these are companies that we've worked with. We know already that they're going to give a good job for you. Now it comes down to price and what you're willing to pay for that service.
And how do you deal with the board member that says, well, I know my brother-in-law can do this for a quarter of the price? No, he's not licensed or bonded, but he's a great guy. I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean,
it's
sure
a
that happens
challenge,
every now and then.
It happens more often than you would imagine.
I can imagine.
But what we try to do is talk about liability. If the board is going to use an unlicensed contractor, they're setting themselves up personally for risk, and to be held accountable if something should happen. So it's generally not in the best interest of the community to do something like that. There's also a perceived conflict of interest, and so by having a professional and someone who's licensed and bonded and is capable of doing that, it takes away any perception of impropriety. And it also ensures that we're minimizing the risk to the association.
You know, another thing that Steve and management company will be telling them is just from the Nevada Administrative Code has a provision that says that the commission or the division can look at whether you solicited bids from licensed bond insured people as to fulfill your fiduciary duty. And so if they're hiring the brother-in-law who's a great guy but isn't licensed, then and something goes amiss, then the commission or division can actually impose sanctions on the board who may have hired them. So it's always a fine line there. Steve, Melissa was kind enough to share with us some thoughts on their foreclosure program, where they will go in and work with homes where there's been a foreclosure. But before we can get to Melissa, before we can hire them to come in and do that, the board has to do some things. I wonder if you could share with your viewers your insight into the new legislation that took effect just in 2009 about the ability to enter onto homeowners' properties to address landscaping problems.
I'm actually really excited about that and about Classics program. Now that we have this opportunity, boards through a process of notice and hearing can now enter onto a property to make repairs, where they weren't able to do that necessarily before. And I think the great part about it is that they can collect the fees used to do it. I know oftentimes boards will ask, well, should we do this? Are we going to get our money back? How do we know that? How do we know we're going to recover it after the property has sold? And now what the statute allows is that we notice the homeowner, we provide them an opportunity to correct it themselves. If that doesn't happen, we notice them again and invite them to a hearing. And after that hearing, then the board has the ability to contract a company such as Classic, make the repairs, bring it up to the standard and maintain it. And because they've gone through that process, it now becomes a super priority as far as the lien goes. And they can collect that when the house transitions, when it goes to sale.
It's probably one of the best changes in the 2009 legislative session was the ability of the board to at least recover that from the bank or the purchaser at the bank's foreclosure sale. Because, you know, we don't want our HOAs to become landscape companies, but when you've got these programs out there that can address it, it's something they really need to consider.
And equally important, I mean, it keeps the neighborhood looking nice. I mean,
Absolutely.
You have homeowners that are living there that aren't losing their homes to foreclosures, but don't want to see a blight on their community. It's just not something that they want to see.
How do you, and I don't know who's best suited to answer this question, but how do you handle the balance today between, okay, the economy's gone down, we only got 70% of our homeowners maybe paying assessments, so we're trying to cut corners and do things. How do you balance this funding that home boards wanting to cut back and not increase assessments? How are you handling that with the board meetings and stuff?
For us, it's a process of education. I think it's important that the boards have to understand that they're running a small corporation and they have to do what's in the best interest of that. It is a challenge. Delinquency rates are high, higher than we've ever seen, and when people aren't paying their assessments, things have to be cut out. So we help to look at how we can control costs for the association, whether it's through our management, whether we're adjusting our fees, or looking at service providers and seeing where we can cut back, but without a detriment to the community. You just don't want to cut out the landscaper or turn off electricities, but where could we cut back to make it work? We also do encourage them that if they are falling behind, that there are times when you may have to do a special assessment. Or you may have to increase the assessments in order to meet the minimum needs of the association. And so what we really do is we emphasize education and making sure that our boards understand the process and we work with them.
Melissa, maybe last thought before we end here. During Jay and others have talked again about trying to use the programs that they have but maintain the beauty. And I think that's what Classics really emphasizing is let us get in and help you maintain the appearance, make some modest changes, but keep the aesthetics.
That's exactly right. And it comes down to communication and staying in touch with your boards and your managers and sitting down and determining what type of a program best suits your needs at the budget that you can afford. And at Classic Landscapes, we've been very proactive in creating all types of different programs to, hopefully meet the budgets that, we're working within these communities.
I can't thank you guys enough for your time again, not just to be with us, but the information you've given and the service you've given the communities for these decades. Thank you so much for doing that. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have a little something extra for you, so please stay with us.
I I thought indoor tanning was safe.
They said their tanning rays were less likely to cause a sunburn.
What you need to know is UV light from indoor tanning can cause premature aging.
And even worse, UV light can increase your risk of skin cancer, including melanoma, the deadliest form of skin cancer.
In fact, current estimates are that 1 in 5 Americans develop skin cancer.
And 1 person dies from melanoma about every hour.
I don't want to be one of them.
This message brought to you by the American Academy of Dermatology.
Putting out your trash is so easy. Just take it to the curb and it's picked up for you on your assigned days. But wait, did you know that not all garbage should be picked up? That's right. Items like paint thinners, gasoline, waste oil, computers, pesticides, and pool chemicals should only be dropped off at these 2 locations: Recycle Center or the Henderson Transfer Station. Make sure your household hazardous waste is taken away, not dropped at the curb. For more detailed information, go to republicservicesvegas.com.
Welcome back. Through HomeownerTalkTV.com, we ask our viewers to send in questions. Now, before we go, we thought we'd answer one more question, and this time it's from Catherine, and she wants to know, our community has many foreclosed homes and overgrown lawns. I'm concerned about my property values. Do I have any legal recourse? John, any thoughts on Catherine's question?
Yeah, I think there's really 2 issues. First, I don't know if Catherine's on a board of directors, but if she's on a board in a common interest community, then the association does have some options. If the property is vacant, or if the property is in foreclosure by the lender, then the association has the right to enter into the property to make the repairs. As Steve Vitale said in our previous segment, there's a notice and hearing process, gives the association the right to enter the property and to be able to make the repairs to the exterior of the property, and then to treat it as a special assessment and ultimately part of the super priority lien. Now, if it's not vacant and if it's not foreclosed by the lender, in foreclosure, then there's still usually a CC&R provision that allow the association to enter the property. If Catherine's not a member of the board, she's a homeowner and she has the right to be concerned about what's going on next door, yes, she has the right to enforce the CC&Rs. She does not have the right to enforce NRS 116 because that's an association right, but there is, the neighbor is not taking care of the property. She may have some recourse. Problem is the association's a lot better situated to address the issue than she is. So hopefully maybe with some little gentle chiding on her part, she might be able to get the board to step in and move on that.
And maybe our next show should be about how to determine if a property is in foreclosure. That's a whole other.
Good call.
That's a whole other topic. Thank you very much. You know, we encourage all of our viewers to ask more questions through our website.
We'd also like to thank our guests today, Jay Stoss, Alex Zari, and Melissa Mills of Classic Landscapes, and Steve Vitale of the Management Trust, and a board member of CAI Nevada.
And that's all for this edition of Homeowner Talk. We'd like to thank all of our partners on this show. Of course, the Management Trust, Alliance Association Financial Services, Classic Landscapes, LLC, Western Risk Insurance, and Nevada Association Services. Remember, you can always find information about this program, and you can also drop us a line at HomeownerTalkTV.com. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on Homeowner Talk.